Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager episode 84 as we head to the Italian Grand Prix to Monza next in just 4 days. So, short turnaround from last race to this race weekend. We are, well, for one thing, Porsche and Doohan both picked up another point in control to see where that gets us. But of course, they have identical levels and they have now almost identical levels to what Albon had, and yet Porsche's rookie year, right, made all those mistakes, and doing this year is one mistake after another, after another, after another. Unlike Porsche, who makes the occasional one, Albon made the occasional one. All the drivers in the field have occasional mistakes. Doing is, doubling, tripling that of Porsche. So anyway, as much as I'm ready to start committing to next season, as there's 6 races left in this year, and we clearly have a car capable of winning races. We just don't have the drivers that are quite there, and I'm really hopeful that Doohan suddenly next season is going to make the exact number of mistakes that Porsche makes, and that once he gets past this year, the rookie coding, rookie bug will fade, will go away. I'm hoping. I'm very hopeful, because statistically, attribute wise, like the only thing that I can find between them is that Porsche is aggression is low for him. That's behind the face cam, but for Doohan, his aggression is high. So is it because he's aggressive he makes mistakes? I mean, that should have to do with overtakes, right? And not anything else. But anyway, we have entered a new phase when it comes to our development hours. Therefore, it's time to get on with our 2 other major developments. If you remember from last time, I divided the 4 upgrades that we needed to work on into the 2 phases. The one we needed the most, the front wing, got 2/3, 3/4 of the time. The one we needed the least, the chassis, went with it, paired with it, and we only did 2 upgrades in the last period. I am doing the same this period, but with 2 upgrades that need it similarly. So I'm going to split 50-50 the time and get both of them. And as much as I want to start focusing on next season, regulation change wise, there's only 2 parts that are going to be impacted. So with 6 races left and another period coming, looking at the timing wise, that's going to put us into one final period for the year. So the last period, we'll do the same thing, 50-50 upgrades, but research for next year's car to offset the changes for the year. So you can see cornering wise, we are not on top anymore, by the way. We've been caught, we've been passed. In terms of the values, we are gaining that little bit more top speed, a little bit more cornering capability, and again, marginal gains in the dirty air cornering. The biggest gain that we get out of this is engine cooling from the side pods. That's the big thing that's responsible for. That's going to see us jump to 71%. And especially with only 2 upgrades, I'm going to put both of them on intense with the maximum number of engineers possible. This will be done in 38 days. It's going to be pretty late into the season. At that point, I might as well just start doing research. I don't want to do the rushed. The rushed isn't going to serve much of a purpose. Change my mind, change of approach here. We're going to now do research on the 2 changed parts and get research done twice on both of those before the end of the year. Reason being, by the time that upgrade comes to the car, it's going to be there for like one race, maybe 2. It's right at the end of the season. What's the point of spending all that extra money on developing those parts and trying to put them on only to see one of those in particular see a big decline next year? I might as well get double research done, because the chassis and the side pods, which I was just looking at, are the 2 that are going to be impacted heavily this year with nothing else. The chassis in particular is going to see a hefty redesign. So I'm going to put maybe 60-40 into the chassis and do this twice. Now on this screen, it's actually showing up as a 30% drop. So pretty heavy overall drop, both to the drag reduction and the airflow. The engine cooling remains low, so I'm going to not invest as heavily in that one and put our time and effort into these 2, so we have a greater emphasis on recovering the losses You can see with a minor 10% reduction to everything but the engine cooling, side pods are not going to be as heavily impacted. And so with 2 research projects on the way, that means the car is now set for the year. It's not changing anymore the rest of the way. We're sitting on close to 13 million. I had a number of refurbishment projects to complete for our facilities. Operations facilities in particular, to get those all back up to their highest level. The staff facilities is all but done except for those last 2 scouting levels. Those will be the final thing I do. So in the car development facilities, we're down to the final 6 levels. 2 of those, they're still sitting in good condition, so we don't need to worry about them for a little while, even though there is still a level left to go. And these 2 big upgrades are on the way, coming here late in the season. But then the factory is already down in its effectiveness, and it's approaching dropping another level. So I am going to do the next upgrade on this very soon. I would have had the money if I didn't do the other refurbishments. I could have started with this, but we need to keep everything that we can at tip-top shape, and then we'll do this one soon enough. We're not going to do a lot more car development anyway, so the manufacturing side of what we have is going to be okay. There's no new parts coming onto the car the rest of this year, so they'll keep up well enough with our needs for the remainder of the season. And then this hopefully will be an upgrade that is done in time for next year's car, and I'm pretty sure it will be. At just 12th and 14th, Monza was not our best track. This is one of the rare instances where Porsche was relatively close to his teammate, so at least there was that part, but that was a rough race for us. Everyone managed to finish the race as well, with one Red Bull, Max Verstappen, very much towards the back end of the field. I think he was one of the few that had issues on the day that dropped him down, and he just didn't quite recover, if I remember correctly. But this is not a track that really suits us terribly well. It's a lot of long straights. This is the track for going maximum speed all the time, and last year's car was still really slow compared to everybody else. This year we've got it up to a competitive speed, so I would expect that we're going to be a little bit better off, because the fast corners that come with it was one of our strengths until, well, really by this race. A couple of teams have caught up with us, but I think we should at least be able to be competing for points. I don't think we're going to be competing for a race win, though.
Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane. We're here at Monza in Italy, the home of Ferrari. But who will take home the points this weekend? Let's find out as we get started with the Italian Grand Prix. Monza, a centurion among circuits, dripping with motorsport history. Expect to see cars fly by, as 80% of the track is tackled at full throttle. It's not all go, however, and brakes can be prone to overheating through the tight chicanes that Monza has to offer. With the season nearly concluded, time is running out for the teams. Can anyone make a last-minute breakthrough? Can the leading drivers hold on?
If you remember last race, Doohan, for a change, was taken out of a race completely through no fault of his own. Rare sight indeed, as he was slammed into the back of and taken out. Was that Verstappen that took him out? Yes, it was. It was Verstappen, and Verstappen had a... Did he even get a penalty? I don't think he even got a penalty out of it, did he? I don't think he had a penalty at all. Oh, no, he had a 5-second penalty that he served right away, and that was it, and it cost him nothing? Anyway, he still finished, third or fourth in that race. Doohan, this is the cost of that, though. Gearbox, completely destroyed. The ERS, almost completely destroyed. I mean, you can essentially chalk that up as it's gone, it's written off. And the engine is now only serviceable as a practice engine. And it was a brand new gearbox. It was a brand new gearbox that we were using in that one. So we may yet have another penalty before the end of the season to try to get to the end of this thing. But I think we might try to make use of what we have and just make the best of it. Porsche awfully close to Norris, but here that's generally meaning you're going to get a tow, as it's more straights than anything else. So Porsche should have a good time, and he is so much faster. How is he that much faster than Doohan? Doohan 1.76 off the time? What the heck? He didn't have anything I didn't see anybody getting Dewan's way, but man, oh man, was that a terrible time. We're going to send him out again right away. Porsche second quickest, though, for now. And should have a time that'll see him out of the session. Does not improve his time. What is going on? I changed the parts for both drivers. Dewan is so ridiculously far off the pace. It's looking like the game didn't save it. I mean, he is absurdly off the pace. He was not getting blocked either time, but he is over by an insane amount. He is crazy slow. I think Dewan's going to be out here in Q1, and I'm thinking that, because I just did it, I changed the parts. I'm thinking that the game somehow didn't retain that information and that he is going to be out here in Q1, which means the damaged parts that we had, we're going to be coughing up $3 million to put on new ones to get to the end of the season if he's going to be at the back of the grid anyway. But I did change it. 100% without a doubt changed it. We're going to go out on the same set of tires again. I'm not wasting another set of tires for Dewan. Porsche is going to stay in. Now, Dewan's nearly 2 seconds off the pace, and he's off the pace. You can see it again. He's been passed by Verstappen out on track. That's how slow he was. He got passed. Last place. Yeah, I was correct. This is a engine at 41%, ERS at 33, and a gearbox at 10% for Dewan. It didn't take. It's the first time that's happened in how many seasons? It's got to be on me. I'm 100% confident. I was 100% confident. Now I'm not. Now I'm 50-50. It had to be me. If that bug existed, I would have seen it by now. Second run of Q2. The first run was good considering it was multiple use set of tires, but it's just low enough in time that I was nervous that we could get overtaken. Looks like we wouldn't have been. From the looks of it here, we would have been about 8th or 9th if we had not run that second lap, but we run that second lap, and that actually, even with that one, with the brand new set, only improved marginally at our 6th. While I head out for my first lap, and as we enter the first chicane, Vettel got in our way, but apparently did not impact our time. I think he did. I think he did impact us a little bit there. It's not a great first time. It is 5th so far. So provisionally, we are 5th place as we begin our final flying lap. Of course, like everyone, every other race this season, we have flipped the script. So we've got the fresh set now while everybody else is on the U set that they just ran their first time out. So let's see if we can improve our time. We are green after one sector. That's good. It's not purple though. Obviously, you'd love to see purple, but I don't think we're going to see any purples here. We're just not fast enough for the car. But we are green in the first 2 sectors, so hopefully we can improve our position and at least get up onto the second row. But improving enough to do that, getting a full 10th, is going to be tricky. For now, we're bumped down. In fact, we're bumped down to 7th for the time being. We're going to need a good one here, and it's good enough for 3rd. Okay, I'll take that. 3rd place. 2nd row. That's going to be a good starting position. Dewan, on the other hand, is going to have brand new everything starting from the back of the grid. At least it's a track you can overtake on.
Race day has arrived and the time has come for these drivers to fight it out wheel to wheel.
Seeing how they did in qualifying, Williams are going to be the team to watch here. They'll be starting strong at the top of the grid and will have many opportunities to steer the race in their favor. The work Red Bull did during qualifying was nothing short of spectacular. Now let's see if they can repeat that for today's race. And the clouds today look very ominous, which means that teams may have to contend with rain at some point during the race.
Well, this is going to be one thrilling Italian Grand Prix, and we're nearly ready to kick things off.
It's been dry all race weekend, but it's going to be raining all but the first lap of the race and the last lap of the race, with rain all the way in between. We're looking at maybe variable conditions where it might go straight from dry to full wets, but only lasting for 2 to 3 laps worth, and then sitting in intermediate territory for bulk of the race, but then the rain's going to get pretty heavy towards the end, and that's full wets. So strategy wise, I'm going to start on the intermediates. We are not waiting until lap 3 to come in. We're going to come out on the intermediates right off the bat. Run the intermediates and then run the wets. We'll see if others do the same or whether they're going to come out on the softs. I've run 2 laps full blast. We're going to be slow. We're definitely going to be slow for those couple of laps. But let's see if everybody else does the same thing we do. Tempted to have Pourchaire on the softs going full blast. How much time can he gain? I don't think it's going to be enough in 2 laps, 3 laps. All right, I'm mixing strategies and rolling the dice here a little bit. I'm going to take Jack Doohan straight away on the intermediates with the wets coming later on and just cruise the first couple of laps and hope that we don't lose a ton of time. Meanwhile, Pourchaire, I'm going to put out on the softs. Maximum effort. Even though we qualified third, we're going to be on the front row. Reason being, as Verstappen's carrying a penalty after destroying Jack Doohan or taking on the new parts after just destroying Doohan in the last race. Whichever the case may be, whether it was a proper penalty or whether it's the new components he had to replace, he's got a penalty. So that's going to bump Pourchaire up to P2, which means front row. And if we attack hard off the line, we're going to be in clean air. Now, if everybody else comes out on softs, except Doohan, Pourchaire's not losing anything, and he's going full gas for those first couple of laps, trying to open up a little bit of space before he pits in and puts on the intermediates. By then, I'm guessing he's going to be well ahead of Doohan, so he would at least still come out ahead of Doohan. And if everybody goes on softs, Pourchaire's at least pitting first. If they all go on intermediates, Pourchaire is going to be going insanely fast, and we'll see how much of a gap he can open up on the dry compound where everybody else is on the wet. Risky strategy, but worth a shot. We'll see what happens. Either way, you can overtake here, so Pourchaire can bounce back, or Doohan can bounce back. Doohan from the back of the field is going to have a harder time bounce back. It says 16th for a starting position, but that was before the penalties. It's going to bump him right back down to 20th.
The drivers have now taken position on the grid, and it's looking like a cloudy day. Here's Williams. A second place start for them today. They're in with a real chance. And looking at the second Williams car. They'll be starting the race from the bottom half of the grid, so there's a fair bit of ground to make up. Will their hard work pay off today? Here we are at the oldest circuit in Europe for this, the Italian Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
It's a sea of red and yellow, so Doohan is the one with the risky strategy here, and Pourchaire going full gas at the start is not going to get the whole shot. In fact, it's 3 wide here, but with the soft compound, he's got just about enough that I think we are going to pull ahead eventually out of the chicane, and we do.
Doing what you're doing.
Tire severely overheating for Doohan, and he is already dead last, well behind. Nothing I can do about that. He's going to lose some out of those tires over these first couple of laps. Now, we're going to go neutral to save the battery, but we are going to go full gas otherwise for the first couple of laps and try to open up whatever gap we can before the rain comes here shortly. Meanwhile, with Doohan, how far behind are we? Far enough behind that we've already lost sight of everybody. Oh my. Well, that's 3 seconds though, and we don't have to pit. And for now, that gap continues to open as we attack here right from the start. We need that little bit of a gap because as everybody comes down pit road, we're going to get caught out. Multiple cars have crashed. Safety car, safety car, safety car. Pitting now.
Take a look at the replay.
So we have a lap 2 incident here.
Involving Albon.
Got Aston Martin getting into the back of the Alfa Romeo, and oof.
They'll have felt that.
I assume that everybody's going to be pitting in. The gap is at 0.8. Hasn't closed up yet. And Doohan's holding at 3.5 behind. Now, he does have that extra wear on the tires, but he's going to move up the grid a lot by already being on these intermediates. All right, Pourchaire, moment of truth. Oh, the others aren't pitting? Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. The others aren't pitting yet. Pourchaire's going to come out the back end. But Doohan and Pourchaire are going to inherit the race lead when everybody does pit. Vettel also pitting. I'm guessing he's not going to put on the intermediates. We know that the... There's the rain. There's the rain. The rain has begun to fall. And there's Doohan just now getting past Pourchaire. Half the field pits. Half the field pits. That's going to move us up into P1 and P2 once this settles through. Unless we go green this next lap and those guys pit in as we go green. Oh my, there's that 4 millimeters. It's full-on wet conditions, but it's not going to stay, I hope, in full-on wet conditions. Everybody else came out on the intermediates. And safety car is ending this lap. Safety car is ending this lap. Those guys at the back still aren't caught up. Not quite. They're almost caught up. And then these guys at the front, safety car is ending. So if they pit now, they're going to be well behind. If they don't pit now, they're going to be massively off the pace. No, that's just Albin. Okay. They just came to a crawl as they go into the pits. As they go into the pits, and we take the race lead. And yes, some of the field has not even caught up fully. And that's going to be us in a 1-2 with a whole group of cars, not quite 10, but a whole group of cars going backwards. Wow. Okay. Well, I read that situation correctly. Doohan from last to first already. We do not need to be full on attack here, though. We've already recovered a lot of the fuel that we're going to need to recover, and we definitely need to go standard because we are expected to stay under these conditions for a long time yet. Everybody's on the intermediates. The track is already beginning to dry. It will be below the wet conditions here shortly. For now, we don't have very good pace, but the moment this drops below 4, we will have normal pace. And the Red Bull 3 wide there, getting squeezed. That's Pourchaire getting passed, by the way. Doohan's the one who's got the lead pace. And his pace is not great, but remember, we were a little slow on that lap, but now at 3.84, we're starting to get up to speed. But I have a feeling that that poor pace at the beginning is what cost Pourchaire those 2 positions. But we're going to settle into a groove and speed things up here. It's lap 6. By the way, just programming note for the next handful of episodes, actually more than a handful of episodes. Definitely for the remainder of the current season. I'm going to have to speed things up a lot more than what I normally do. Long story short, this is my busiest time. I run a business, and it's taxes time. I coach multiple sports. I have a week left of basketball season, and track season starts soon. I'm the head coach at both. I have a lot of things that I have to do to prepare for that track season, and look at that gap to those cars behind. You got a good, 5 cars back there? Well behind Bottas. The first of those at 13.5 seconds back. We do have 13 cars bunched up near the front, though, so kind of 13 cars still in contention, and the track is drying out more and more and should hold at intermediate conditions until it's time to switch to the wets. Though I do remember that we were looking at one period of increase, but if you look at where we're at right now at the just over 3 millimeters, that's where we should be at again when that rain intensifies around lap 15. But anyway, Doohan being challenged by Verstappen, so Verstappen has already overcome his penalties, and Verstappen on the gearbox of Doohan that he destroyed last time already. We've got another brand new gearbox in there, Is Verstappen going to outbreak himself and take us out again? I almost wouldn't mind, because Porsche would benefit of that. But last time Verstappen didn't get punished. He still scored points. He did not take himself out in the process, just as Vettel did not take himself out in wiping out Albon here, as once again being challenged. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Between the taxes, between the coaching requirements, this is a busy season for me. Always is, always has been. Things kind of clear up for me in the summer, or at least late spring. It get a little easier, and I have more free time on my hands. But with that, I'm already busy as it is. But then when you add in, as now Dewitt finally settles in behind Verstappen and immediately decides he wants to challenge, and then Russell comes up the inside and passes him easily. Jeez. P3, P4.
It's a race position gained for Mercedes.
My wife is from the Philippines. We have been there. She's obviously been there, but since we've been married, we have been there. But it's been nearly 10 years since she's been home. And so we are taking a trip to her home and to areas that even she has never been before. And we're going to be gone for 17 days. And that's coming up in less than a month now. So less than a month from now, I'm going to be gone for more than half of a month. I am working to get ahead on content. I am working to produce as much content as I can to cover that period that I'm gone. I don't know how much of that I'll be able to cover until I get back, because, like I said, I have all of these other things also going on. And to kind of just move on from this, to make the point, I'm speeding up, because the requirement in recording these episodes, these F1 episodes in particular, the requirement for each one, when you throw in all of the practice, 2 episodes of this takes me almost a full day. So right now, I'm making sure that I get at least 3 episodes in over that period, and then those extra episodes are what's going to set me up for having that extra content while I'm gone. And so in general, we're going to be playing a little bit faster. Speaking of, let's speed things up. As Doohan runs wide, but he instantly gets back on the track. He just lost a little ground on those 2 guys in front of him, and once again puts Porsche in a bad spot. So Doohan cost Porsche second and third earlier, and then he just cost him some ground yet again. And Verstappen was involved in that. It's just local yellow, and we are now in first and second. So it was the 2 leaders. It was the 2 leaders.
Now here we see Max Verstappen
and Russell. Verstappen and Russell. Just a little lockup by Russell. Just a tiny lockup, and he taps. That's why they're both able to continue. So just almost couldn't quite stop. Russell picks up a 5-second penalty. He's going to rejoin the track in 13th. Verstappen only loses a few spots, but that puts us back on top. Meanwhile, our fuel has continued to recover in a nice way, and we are comfortable on the tires for now, though of course Doohan is a little bit more worn than others. But the damp track that was approaching full wet didn't hit it, and is already back to dropping. So what we're looking at next weather event is somewhere around lap 28 or 29, seeing a drastic increase in the dampness on track. Ricardo with a lockup. And that is when we need to pit. And we're looking at 2 cars that are nose to tail, and that means either we have to double stack and one loses time. It's Porsche in the lead, by the way. He's gotten around Doohan. Or we're going to have to offset, and it's going to depend on how the rain is coming. If it's mid-high 3 at the time we come around, then you pit the first guy, and then come back the next lap to pit the next one, and you just drive on and as they challenge each other here briefly. But now we're looking at a front 5, and then now a gap to 6th, and has Russell pit. So he served his penalty and pit and comes out in last place. So he is 19th now. Vettel runs wide. Push. Overtake.
Look at reducing
Coming out of
the
this chicane,
grip
let's
tempo.
hope to get around Bottas. Bottas goes over to block. Come on, let's go, Porsche.
He's overtake.
Bottas blocks us, and then now we're gonna squeeze past and get into some clean air. But we lost some ground there on what we could have gained on the front 7. But he's clearly going faster than Perez. Well, Perez is in the race lead now. Okay. Doing held up, still held up, and he's going to come out in 4th. Pit box, 2.5. They might have been faster on their stops as well, but that is 100% pit box location. Nailing us again. Porsche does come out in P1. Doohan's going to come out in P6, it looks like. He loses one more position as Stroll, the first on the wets, the first to pit behind Porsche, comes out ahead. All right, we want to go aggressive the rest of the way.
Push
And
hard. Happy to push hard.
This is now first place. We're going to go aggressive and balanced
Okay, back off.
and down to neutral. So Porsche in the race lead. Doohan is P6, and there is no more pit stops the rest of the way. It's going to start to dry out late, but it's going to be too late to make a change. And if somebody does pit to change, they're going to lose a ton of ground. So everybody's coming out on the wets here. You can see Schumacher and Latifi, the last ones in. And now for the gaps. We'll go gap to leader. 8.5 second lead for Porsche. Oh, I love it. 8.5 seconds. Perfect timing on getting in. Sector 2, yellow. Perez is now second with Verstappen, and then Stroll, who squeezed in Ricciardo with a spin. And then Norris, then Doohan, who lost 3 positions as a result of pitting the same time as others. He lost 1 position because of the adaptability and being on the wrong compound for the time. So what cost us more? The pit box. And that is an absolutely absurd thing that they didn't update that at some point during this cycle. F1 Manager 2023, when that comes out, if it does not have that fixed, if your pit box does not move season by season, then that is going to be the biggest letdown. That is the number 1 most important upgrade for F1 Manager 23 for me. Most important thing of all. I want to see multiplayer. I want to see custom team. I want to see competitive F2, competitive F3, W Series, F4. I'd love to see as far down as you can get. But the most important thing, without a doubt, has got to be the pit box, because it drastically hurts over and over again. 7.54 millimeters, by the way. It's dumping buckets. 8.8 second lead over Perez, and then Verstappen just behind him, and then it's an 11 second gap to Stroll. So podium looks pretty sound on the 2 competitors that are behind us. Who's going to gain the most points on that occasion? But then none of their teammates are up here. Sainz and Leclerc both outside of the points. Doohan is in the points. This could be a good day for us on whether we gain. If these guys can hold on to their positions, hold on to their performance. Doohan is already almost positive in the fuel, and Doohan has a decent chance to overtake Norris and Stroll, being right behind them. He's got a 5 second gap to Magnussen. You got 3 cars there, and then another 4 second gap to Sainz and Leclerc, who are running together. And then the rest of the field is well behind. McLaren's not gaining anything significant today. Mercedes isn't gaining anything at all, with Ocon starting the day with penalties from the back and being on the wrong pit strategy each time we've had the occasion. And then Russell with that slight lockup and hitting Verstappen, going from P2 to the back.
Looks like there's been a lockup.
Perez with the lockup, and that's going to knock him down. No, he doesn't. He's closer. Perez locks up and is closer. My guess, he cut the corner. He locked up on the first part of the chicane and came out, and he gained time. So that task is done, and they're only half a second closer as Pourchaire runs wide. Pourchaire runs wide, and that gap's going to come down. Down to 3.2. Down to 3.2. So he loses close to a second, so fortunately not too bad. Track is starting to dry out. It's at 4.5. As that hits below 4, we are going to be in a little bit of trouble in the final laps, as we're going to be on the wrong compound. Doohan. I don't know how Doohan is not recovered. I don't see how he has not recovered the fuel. Let's go ahead and ride with Doohan. I guess help him get that last 1/10. We'll see what kind of overtakes he can make. We're giving up a couple of points here, but he's going to be fast for these final 8 laps. And again, if others do it, it will pay off.
Let's go push.
So we're going to ride with Doohan as he tries to make his way forward. He is 13th, 38.5 seconds back. Overtake is on, and we're going to get around him immediately. Back up into P12. Okay, we've got a little gap now to reach Bottas.
Just gained by Williams.
Pourchaire has almost been caught by Verstappen. They are 1 second behind. Full on attack, please. And it's lap 49. So close to... Verstappen already went around Pourchaire just like that. Didn't even take him one lap to get around us. Doohan went around Bottas and has left him in the dust. He may yet get up to P4, potentially. As fast as he's going, it might work out for us. Pourchaire, though, has already lost the race win. He's down to P2. Okay, Doohan has caught these guys. We need to put the overtake on the straight. He should be able to get around Leclerc and Sainz. Oh, another big block-off moment. Pourchaire down to 63%. And, of course, severely overheating. He's still in P2. And we're going to get a run on Sainz. We're going to get Sainz, and that's back to P9 for Doohan. We're not quite back to where we were, but we've made up a lot of ground. This is working out pretty well. Now we're down to 1.2 on the track dampness. Up to P8 as we get around Gasly. Let's go. One more. Perez and Verstappen are both pitting. Everybody's pitting. It's the final lap of the race, you idiots. I get it. It's too dry, but everybody is pitting. It's going to be a 1-2 finish. They wouldn't pit before, but they pit now. Wow. Okay, now, Verstappen is 6 seconds behind Doohan. 6 seconds behind Doohan. Can he hold him off for 6 seconds? Let's see. 7 seconds. They are now 3 seconds behind. Final turn. Pourchaire is going to take the race win and do it.
Checkered flag.
It's going to be a 1-2 with just a dumb AI mistake on the final lap. You don't pit, and then you wait and pit on the last lap. I get the track's dry enough for that, but you don't pit at this point. You don't pit on the final lap. You pit with 3 laps to go and put on softs. You pit with 10 laps to go and put on intermediates, or 9 laps to go and put on intermediates. And it clearly worked on the intermediates part for Doohan, as we had recovered all the way up to that P4. We were about to pass Norris when he peeled off into the pits. But big mistake from everybody else. We just made it work, switching from wets to intermediates. But switching wets to full softs, if you still had a few laps to go, that makes sense. Not on the final lap. Though. A 1-2 finish, and that's one race in the books. And it's a good one. Verstappen, Sainz ends up getting up into the points. Perez and Leclerc ends up getting up into the points. So they do collect something in the end on that one. Surprisingly enough, they moved up the order. A lot of teams like Magnussen dropping all the way to P11 from 7th. In the drivers, Pourchaire is now 4 points behind Verstappen for the Drivers' Championship and well clear of Leclerc. With 5 races to go, it's looking pretty clear that it's a 2-horse race, though Leclerc is not mathematically eliminated by this point, not even Perez for that matter. Doohan moves up 2 spots to 7th, and in the Constructors, big day for us, really closing that gap. We gained 10 points on Red Bull, who flip from 1 point behind Ferrari to 1 point ahead at 131.29. We gained 12 points on Ferrari, who were the race leaders, or championship leaders, and now we're just 6 down. So we closed up 2/3 of the gap to the top. But of course, Red Bull wise, we're sitting 7 behind. But that's a big gain from where we were at 18 down. I mean, we scored exactly 18 points today. We were 18 behind. The only thing keeping them ahead of us is the fact that they both managed to score some points themselves. But yeah, now just 7 behind. And like I said, McLaren, absolutely no longer a threat. We are 41 points ahead of McLaren. And we're still in this thing for the Constructors this year. We could still actually win it this season, potentially. But the mistakes have been too prevalent. Today, Pourchaire had the only mistake. He ran wide, lost 1 second. Not even 1 second. He lost about 0.7 of a second. And Doohan had a fantastic race to get P2. He went from last place to first with a bold strategy that worked out only because of the safety car on lap 2. And that worked out for both of our drivers, really. Because we saw what happened later with Doohan and pitting at the same time as other cars closely behind you. They come out ahead every time. So he gets held up. He loses ground, but then we again go for the bold strategy, second time with Doohan, and it paid off each time. And as for Pourchaire, staying out was the right thing. And as for the last lap, AI, why? If you haven't pit by that point, you just don't pit. You don't pit on the last lap. But then again, right, we saw in Sochi a few years ago, Lando Norris, track conditions changed drastically right at the end. He stayed out, stayed on, was it dry compound or was he on intermediates and it went full wet conditions? I don't remember which it was. It's been a few years, but I do remember that track got crazy slippery and Norris lost it on the last lap. But that's changing the other direction. When it's drying out, you're just slow. You're not running the risk of anything tires severely overheating, so maybe you could see a blowout. But yeah, you don't pit on the last lap. You just see it out and get to the finish. Anyway, what a result. And that's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.